Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Listen with Vobes with me, Richard Vobes. And we have another stab, if stab is the right word, at Neighbourhood by Tickner Edwards in our reading today. Hello to TurboStream, to the lovely Julia, to Holly and Co, to Stephen Montville, to Cooper68, to Justine Jones, to David Vad, Philip Hammond and Mary. Mary, good afternoon. Richard and Julia, nice to see you. A few more people, no doubt, will come along. Ollie says, Ollie the Squid is here as well, which is nice to see you. I'm hoping that we have a reasonable read. Thank you for coming back. I'm surprised that you have, after some of my appalling readings on this book. I am enjoying it, but the level of concentration has frazzled my brain on some occasions. Andrew Norris, what ho, James Poulton, Billabong O'Neill, Alan Sandell and Anne H. Good afternoon, lovely jumper. Yes, it turned a bit colder today. I went out and did not a very good walk, I'm afraid, for tomorrow, a sort of cogitation walk with not a very good subject, but I'm just feeling, I don't know whether everybody else is feeling this now. I think because we've got this roadmap out of the lockdown and there's this sort of sense, well, okay, the vaccine's working. Most of the older people now have had even their second jab and it looks like things are going to happen. What's holding us back? And I'm just feeling the frustration of treading water, this sort of, come on, come on. Don't let the year slip away by keeping us penned up. So, yes, I feel like a dog whose owner has gone out for the day after day after day, and not let me out for a walk. That's how I feel. Jen Coley is here. Hello to you. TurboStream says, it was chilly on the allotment when I planted my broad beans. I hope you planted them broadly, so that they're nicely stretched apart. Lee Lawson says, good afternoon. Busy with research today. Just noticed the time. I was doing a bit of research as well in front of the Essie, actually. I lit the Essie and I thought, sod it, I'm going to build camp in front of the Essie, which I did, and had eyes down reading. So I hope I haven't strained my eyes. I've taken some time off for the last 45 minutes to relax the eyeballs before we start reading. Audrey Forbes says, good afternoon to you. I think more or less, mostly, we're all here now, gathered around our television screens or computer screens, whatever it is. And the valves have warmed up. Hopefully the eyes and the brain has warmed up as well. So I'm moving on from that dreaded cricket match. I'm sorry if you want to buy the book and read how it ends. It's up to you. It was only about another page and a half, but with all that dialogue in Old English, or at least Sussex dialect, it was just too much for me, and I want to start favourably. But I can tell you that in the end, they won. God knows how. But I don't think it was they won in a proper way, from what I managed to get. I think the other team just lost, really. Sensible Paul is here as well. Nice to see you, sir. So we carry on in July. I think this is still in July. But this is the next section. How time flies. No, it doesn't. You see, well-known phrase. Read that. It's not even what's written on the page. TurboStream says, I felt the same way, Richard, about the lockdown. I want to drive my van somewhere different. Yes, absolutely. Now that we've sort of, it's warming up a bit, you just feel a bit chained up. I'm going to nip down to a shop, which I won't mention the name, but it's one of these awful shops, because I want to get a little welcome mat for my van so that when I come back from muddy walks, I can just brush my feet rather than going straight into the van. I could be in the van, but brush them on this mat and then give it a shake and buy some more bits and pieces so that one can start to use the van in a bit more of a, not camping way, but, well, in a more camping way. Oh, no. Gathering around the campfire, says Anne H. Absolutely. How fast time flies when... No. How... I will get this. How... Just read the words, Vobes. Just read the sodding words. That's all you've got to do. How fast time flies you can never truly estimate until you go step and step with it through the summer woods and fields. In a sense, town life, where there is so much of permanence in environment, puts a drag on time and not seldom pulls it up altogether. Moreover, in towns, time is estimated by events, by experiences. You hear a great musician, see a great play, look at some magnificent pageant, or are shocked by some catastrophe. And straight away there is half a lifetime of emotion thrust between two strokes of the clock. By so much, in very truth, your life has been lengthened. It is the intensity of living that counts in the civic tale of years. If you find an old man not only declaring that he has lived long, but believing it, it is a great chance, but he tells you so in the close-clipped Cockney tongue of the town. And yet it is better to live in some faraway country nook like Windlecombe and be reminded with every gliding summer hour that time flies and life is short, if only because of the undoubted fact that such a frame of mind carries a belief in eternal youth as a necessary implication. Between life's dawn and the dusk of its western sky, there is literally no time to grow old in a natural aboriginal environment. So inexplicably interwoven are the threads of human existence that of the green world round about, that annual rejuvenation of one of the one of infallibility communicates itself to the other. With every spring we start life afresh. Though we may live 70, we are children still, and come upon death at last like an unexpected gust at a corner, old age unrealised to the very end. In the weeks that are closing now, I had heard and seen more of the galloping hoofs of this swift, high-stepping jade, summer, than is good for entire peace of mind. Years ago I made a vow that I would never again eke out the fleeting golden days like the miser to whom spending is not pleasure but only pain. I vowed that I would always squander time at this season, let it drift by unthinkingly, get my fill of sunshine, and fill again to my heart's content, yet do it as I strayed heifer in the corn, wantoning over an acre to each mouthful. But this time, as ever, the good resolution has been forgotten. The old parsimony has dodged the way at every step. I must be up with the sun in the small hours of the morning, fearful of losing a single beam from the millions, to waste in sleep the blue-spangled summer nights, when all the countryside is resonant of life and fragrant with the scent that comes only with the darkness, has seemed like sacrilege. Yet, for all my industry, July is nearing its end, and I know that I have drunk but a drop or two out of its vast ocean, and already I have removed the old vow to be disregarded as ever, doubtless, when July again comes round. There we are. Forgot what a tongue twister it is. Ben Reeves says you could do with a mud daddy. A mud daddy? It looks like a 5-litre petrol can with a water brush fitted. That way you can clean your boots without taking them off before stepping into your van. Oh, I see. And Alan Sandell says, I find books of that era almost impossible to read. Sentences go on forever. Well, they do. I mean, he tends to not use the same word twice. And your normal cadence sort of Words he uses, like that instead of saying what did he finish with there? He finished with. I mean, it's interesting. He says, "Doubtless when July again comes around," whereas most people might say, "Doubtless when July comes around again." But he puts again earlier, which may be more grammatically correct. I don't know. Sorry, I've got to just clean that lens because the words were disappearing behind a smear of blurredness, which won't even help anything else. Hello all. Hello, sailor. That's an eye-popping yellow. Yes, I nearly popped my eye out. Anyway, we shall continue. On all the high-lying cornlands now, harvest has begun, and the fields in the valley are fast taking on that deep tinge of gypsy gold, which is the sign of full maturity. Scarce had the shrill note of the mowing machine stilled in the meadows, when the deeper voice of the reaper and binder began on the hill. All day long I sat in this cool, quiet nook of a study, and the steady jarring sound came over to me from the hillside, filling the little room. I saw the machine, with its pair of grey horses, waiting at the field gate, while the scythe men cut away for it into the amber wall of the grain. Steadily, hour after hour, it worked round the field, until at last, looking forth towards noon, I saw that only a small triangular piece remained, uncut in the middle of the field. Now, there were a score or so from the farm folk waiting by, each armed with a cudgel, and, with them, seemingly, every dog in the village. As the machine went round, every time making the patch of standing corn smaller, I could see rabbits bolting in all directions from the diminishing cover, and there uprose continually a hubbub of voices from dogs and men. Oh, they're not going to wallop the rabbits, the swines. Towards the end, the stubble became alive with the little dark scurrying forms, fleeing to the surrounding fields, the most of them escaping harmlessly for want of pursuers, but even then, as I afterwards learned, some 8 or 9 dozen were killed. Why, those horrible people. He hasn't used ding yet. No, I think he hasn't used a picturesque, has he? I have always kept away from these harvests. Battues. B-A-T-T-U-E-S. Battues. Is that how it's pronounced? No idea. Never seen that word before. Learning loads of words I've never seen before, and hopefully I will never see again. I've always kept away from these harvest battues, but indeed some of these scenes of sport and as indeed from all scenes of sport and congregations, I'm willing enough to profit by these activities and receive and enjoy my full share of the furred and feathered spoil, admittedly without one humanitarian qualm. Well, aren't we all when we go to the supermarket? But this much confessed, I would gladly welcome the day when everyone, save the rabbit warrens, I would gladly welcome the day when everywhere, save in the rabbit warrens, the sound of the sporting gun should cease throughout this southern land. Yes, hear, hear. Rabbits must be kept down to the end of time, but for the creatures that require preservation, too great a price is paid, and paid by the wrong class. It is not the owner of game preserves who bears the main cost of this thundering pleasure. It is the lover of wildlife who sees the hawks and the owls and the small deer of the woodlands growing scarcer every year. You wait till you get to 2021, mate. And the children who in the springtime are cheated out of their right to wander through the primrose glades. To many this may seem a wearisome, trite point of view, affecting a grievance as old as the hills and even less likely of obliteration. But though the point of view isn't ancient enough, the grievance is no longer so. Of late years, the ranks of village dwellers have been very largely reinforced from the classes who care little for sport and a great deal for all other allurements of the countryside. Rural England is no longer peopled by sportsmen and the dependents of sportsmen, but slowly and surely a majority is creeping up into the villages composed of men and women both knowing and loving nature, and to whom the old-time local policy of endurance under deprivation of rights for expediency's sake is an incomprehensible as well as intolerable thing. Well, you wait till you get to this century when it's not so much the people who care for nature, but people with Chelsea tractors who want a nice, rich house, chuck out all the rural people from the village so the kids can't buy it into their own village that they were born into, and basically turn a village into a gated community for very rich people who have either retired from the city or... I'm sounding a bit cynical there. Anyway, all the vast-winged, beautiful marauders of the air that I love to watch are ruthlessly shot down by the gamekeepers on suspicion, presumptive and unproved. But the fox, that in a single night massacres every bird in the village's hen roost, must go scathelessly because poor profit must not be set before a rich pastime. Yes, that's right. Although Oliver Rackham does say that you need the hunting, unfortunately, of birds and foxes in order to keep the woodlands in existence, because if you didn't have the hunting which the birds and the animals live in, farmers would put that ground to more commercial use and grub it up. So neither is good. Lee Lawson says his skills with language are too good to resort to using a hackneyed word like picturesque. Yes, that's true. I wonder how hackneyed it was back in the day of James John Hissey certainly made it hackneyed himself. One day, almost the hottest so far, I was out in the meadows and came upon a curious thing. The path, or rather the green lane, ran between high hedges. On either hand, there was a great field of flowering crops, the one red clover, the other sainfoin. But there must have been 20 or 30 acres of each, stretching away under the tense still air and light, much of a colour, but the sainfoin a softer, purer pink. Both fields seem alike, attractive to bees, but while to the right the sainfoin gave out a mighty note of organ music, the red clover, on my left, was utterly silent. Looking through a gap in the foliage, I could not see a single butterfly or bee. The truth, of course, was that the nectar in the trumpet pellets of the clover was far too down for the honeybee to reach, nor would even the bumblebees trouble about it, with the whole province of sainfoin hard by, overbrimming with a choicer and more attainable sweets. As I wandered along between these great zones of sound and silence, the air seemed to grow hotter and more oppressive with every moment. There was something uncanny in the stillness all around me. The green sprays in the tops of the highest elms lay against the blue sky, sharp and clear, as though enamelled upon it. Not a bird sang in the woodland. Save for the deep-throbbing melody of the sainfoin, all the world lay dumb and stupefied under the noontide glare. And then, chancing to turn and look southward, I saw the cause of it. A storm was coming up. Close down on the horizon lay a bank of cloud like a solid billow of ink. It was driving up at incredible speed. Though not a leaf or grass blade stirred around me, the cloud seemed tossed and torn in a whirlwind's grip. Every moment it lifted higher towards the sun, changing its shape incessantly, black fold upon fold, rolling together, colliding, giving place to others, blacker still. And flying in advance of all this, borne by a still swifter air current, were long, sombre streamers of cloud, rent into every conceivable shape or torn and tattered rags. Rent into every conceivable shape of torn or tattered rags. And now, as the dense cloud pack got up, the brilliant light was blotted out at a stroke, and this startling thing happened. Every bee, apparently at work in the vast field of sainfoin, spread her wings at the ominous signal and raced for home. They swept over my head in numbers that literally darkened the sky. Again, literally, the sound of their going was like a continuous deep siren note, striking point blank in the ear. For a minute it almost endured, and then died away almost as suddenly as it came. A bleak, ghostly light paled on everything around me. Little cat's paws of wind flung through the torpid air. Afar, the harsh voice of the oncoming tempest sounded. Slow, hot gouts of water began to fall, and every moment the inky pall of cloud lit up with an eternal fire. As I made my way off homeward in the track of the vanished bee army, I tried to emulate their speed, but the torrent came surging and crying up my rear, and in a dozen yards I was waterlogged. Thereafter, going leisurely, I came at last into the village, and so to the house. And here, in spite of the deluge, I must stop and look on at more wonders. It seemed almost impossible for any bird to sustain itself on wings under such a cataract. But there above me the martins were, at their old incessant gambols, circling and darting about hither and thither, high and low, in a whirling madcap crew. And higher still, right in the throat of the tempest, I could make out the swifts, 100 strong, weaving their old mazy pattern on the sky, as though in a pearl and opal dusk of a summer's evening. It's hard to, I suppose the birds are used to the wind. I mean, they're sort of designed for it, aren't they? Tammy, hello to you. Good morning from the USA. Lovely to have you with us. And cut the shrubbery with automatic machinery, thus shredding. Oh, very nice. So there we go. Right, we are now on August, ladies and gentlemen. We are on August, chapter, well, I must assume that must be chapter 8. Dink. There goes the tooth. August. Old Runnage's misadventure in wedlock has proved a trouble to more people than one in Windlecombe. In former years, though boating parties from the town were continually to be seen on the river, when the August bank holiday season began, they seldom pulled up at our ferry stairs. From the waterside, now wait a minute, thinking about this, in former years, the boating parties from the town were continually seen on the river. I'm wondering if he's thinking now, thinking that Burpham is sort of loosely where he is basing it, that this must be down at Houghton, down at the bridge where they hire out the river boats on the River Arun, and imagining that they're going upstream. Is it upstream? Is it upstream? Yeah, it must be upstream, mustn't it? Depends which way the tide's going, I suppose. Imagine they're going up towards Burpham, then they could potentially get to the point where the crossing is, which would be quite interesting. Anyway, that was just an aside. Thought I'd mention it. In former years, though the boat parties... sorry, I thought somebody had just written something. In former years, although the boat parties... From the waterside, the village had a somewhat inhospitable look, while a mile further on there were the North Woods, Stavisham's traditional picnicking ground, where, at the gamekeeper's cottage, all were sure of a welcome. Such wandering holidaymakers as found their way into Windlecombe came usually by road and were of the tranquil, undemonstrative breed, like pedestrians, all over the world. There would seem to be something about sitting long hours in a rowing boat which is detrimental, even debasing to a certain common variety of human nature. The tendency to run and shout and skylark on reaching dry ground again appears to be irresistible to this numerous class. And it is at Mrs. Runnage's door that we must lay the blame of submitting Windlecombe to a pestilent innovation. Hang on, people are typing. Lee Lawson says, I thought it might be the ferry at Bury. The ferry at Bury? The ferry at Bury, get the ferry at Bury. Sorry, there's a little advert there for the ferry at Bury. Have you seen Mary? Mary has the ferry at Bury. Is it Mary? Anne says, better downstream without a paddle. There you go. And Tammy, you were speaking of how the rich buy up all the property. Oh, yes, that's right. So the young can't buy their heritage. I was just adding to that. Yes, and cut the shrubbery with automatic machines, thus the shredding. Yes, absolutely, they do. You're quite right. Swines. We're going to have them all shot, actually, when the revolution comes. Whenever this revolution does come. Look ye, says the old ferryman from his seat in the boat, waving a scornful hand towards his garden, as I chanced along the riverbank one fine Saturday afternoon. 'Twere me as painted 'un, and me as put 'em up, just for peace sake. But I'd a taken and chuckled 'em in the river, if I had only had known what sort of peace they'd come on with, he says, translating quickly. The great white board reared itself on ungainly legs above the elder hedge of the garden, and on it, in huge, irregular characters, appeared the single word, Tees. By the side of the ferry punt, 6 town rowing boats lay moored, and from the green depths of the garden there arose a confusion of voices, shrill laughter, and an incessant clatter of crockery. I had hardly realised what it all meant when Mrs. Runridge showed a vast white apron and a hot, perspiring face in the gateway. She bore down upon us with upraised hand, as though she intended bodily harm to one or both. "Here, Joe," she cried, giving the old ferryman a coin. "Change for half a sovereign and sharp's the word." Oh, sharp's the word. "Try the thatchers or mist, weaverly or belike. Don't sit standing there, loony. Dear o' law, was there ever such a man as an run the as and us all run partly nigh off our legs as we be?" "The 7th time," gasped Runnage, as we hurried together up the steep street, "or like as not the 8th, I dunno, and unbeaten as though a-wantin' money." "Money?" "The bed beaten fit for Christian folk to sleep on with lumps in it. And tomorrow will be worse, if 'tis fine. Lord send an earthquake, or Noah's flood, or summint." So obviously he's running tea rooms and he's been run off his feet. I see. When a naturally silent man attempts self-commiseration in words, his case is sure to be a desperate one. But we are all fated to share in his trouble now. On any fine Saturday or Sunday of the month, Runnage will be a familiar figure, hunting down from door to door the change that in villages is so scanty and so hard to discover. On Mondays, we shall all suffer from our foolish kindness in allowing this reckless exportation of bullion. Only Susan Angel at the sweetstuff shop and her small customers will be will be unincommoded. There's a word, unincommoded. For in the handful of battered farthings that have served them as currency during whole decades past, will be necessarily saved by its insignificance, and will remain, no doubt, in the village for service amidst generations yet unborn. But this book is very... you do have to decipher what he means, don't you, from time to time? I mean, I know it's in English. But disturbing visitors to Windlecombe do not all... But disturbing visitors to Windlecombe, in other words, not disturbing people, but the people who are coming are the ones doing the disturbing. But disturbing visitors to Windlecombe do not all come by river. There is an iniquitous job master in Staversham who has long had the village in his evil eye, and at intervals, fortunately rare, he descends upon us with a charabanc, drawn by 3 horses and filled with heterogeneous, why can't I say that word? I know the word, I can't say it. Anyway, human gleanings, the flotsam and jetsam of holiday land, strayed for the day into Staversham from contiguous seaside towns. My goodness. He doesn't write for the general public, does he? Gord blimey. In other words, there's a geezer who's got a charabanc, and he brings people who are the lowlife into the country. That's what I'm getting from that. They come in families, in amorous couples, in collective friendships of each sex and every number and age. They bring baskets of provisions, cameras, balls, wherewithal to play rounders on the green, and musical instruments, many weird kinds, concertinas, mouth organs, babies, and often yapping terriers that set all our dogs frantic on the chains. An altruist whose convictions have grown up amidst the quiet, slow neighbourliness of the country, never finds his principles less easy of application than when he must attune himself to the holiday moods of people escaped from the town. There is no harm at all at the shouting and laughter and fatuous horseplay. Inebriety is practically extinct among those who make the summer season and the country scene of their year's brief merrymaking, and yet it all seems mistaken, reprehensible, and on the same principle that a blunder is worse than a crime. It is futile to tell them so, unless he already knows it, and then it is equally unnecessary. But when the day trip has learned to enjoy himself on the green countryside in the true spirit for which the sun was made to shine and the flowers to grow, he will have found the philosopher's stone, that is to change, not mere lead and iron, but time and life themselves into gold. I can't imagine Burpham being a place that day trippers from Arundel would have flocked to be honest, but hey-ho. Justin Jones says, are the townies turning up without the right change for their teas? I mean, that's what I thought. It came with a sovereign, which would have been impossible, I thought, to change. And where was he going with it? Running off? I couldn't work that bit out. And Edward Moulding says the original course of the river runs close by Burpham. Yes, that's true. There is, down at the bottom of Burpham, down by the river, there's a video. I made a video with Mr. Suggett where we find a medieval moat around which there was probably a medieval manor, or certainly a house. Not a manor, but probably a house of some description, but probably from around 1400 and something down there. It's on the OS map, right down on the original course of the river, which gives the idea that goods must have come in probably from Arundel, where the tall ships used to come in, and the port. And so this bloke could well have been, this family, this medieval manor, which would have been a timber frame thing long gone, surrounded, interestingly, I have to try and find the link. Hang on, let's see if I can find the link for you, because you can watch it after you've listened to all of this. Surrounded by oak trees, which did look of, 350 years probably since the manor had gone up there. Just trying to think what it's called, but I will find it for you. Vobes Burpham Moat. I'm sure that will bring it up. Ah, there it is. Fantastic. Hello, I'm Richard Vobes. I'll post the link, but before I do, I'm just going to show you, because we can. Oh no, that's Pulborough. Huh. That's Pulborough. That was the first. That was this is the one. Sorry, I know you can't see this. I want to make sure we get the right. There's a map. I was just seeing if I can find the map. Here we go. Yeah, just want to show you this bit. So here's Burpham. Burpham round here in the village. There's the river, which presumably is the old part of the river. There's this moat, and there is here, down. So I think the ferry must have been over here somewhere, mustn't it? Down here somewhere or something like that. But yeah, you go down. I can't rewind this, but you go down the thing and you walk along here, and then there's this little bit of land which Mr. Suggett and I find, and you can still make out this area where this medieval thing, and there's all these lovely oak trees. Some of them are much bigger than this. Anyway, if you're interested in that, that is the that's the link for later on. That's the link. So yeah, there you go. I posted that now. Anyway, a little bit of fascination. The original course of the river. Oh yeah, I read that. No contactless cards in 19. No, they did. I don't think they had. I think they were still on chip and pin, weren't they, in 1911? I think they had pins with chips on them. And they said, we'll put this on plastic in the future. Plastic? What's plastic? Anyway, it's all a bit of fun. So, where the hell were we? On most mornings in August, the more careful of us will go about thrusting greasy paper scraps out of sight under bushes. I'm sorry? No, we won't. That's littering, isn't it? That's littering. He is saying that we will litter the place. In most mornings in August, the more careful of us will go about thrusting greasy paper scraps out of sight under bushes. You can't say that. Flickering the incongruous yellow banana peel into obscure corners, lamenting striped boughs, and marvelling at nosegays thrown heedlessly away as if the joy of them had lain in the mere plucking. They weren't using not like nosegays of the plague back then, surely. What is he talking about? But all the strange folk that use the village for their pleasuring at this time do not leave these unlovely tokens behind. You mean to say they take their rubbish home with them? Only yesterday, as I sat on the edge of the old worked-out riverside chalk pit here, I wonder if he's talking about the Amberley chalk pits, which is further up, whence you have a north view and a south of the glittering water for miles, must be. There came a new sound in the air, and I must throw aside my sheaf of galley-proofs to listen. The sound came from the river, and was still far off. Many voices were joined in, singing one of the old catch songs, which go round a circle of 3 or 4 phrases, and to which there is never an end until you make an ending of its beginning in the time. The sweet melody grew louder and clearer, and presently there was united to it a rhythmic plash of oars. A great tarry old sea-boat came round the water's bend, holding a party of a dozen or so. At last the labouring craft and the music came to a halt together, and the singers clambered ashore. I should have forgotten all about them now, for they soon passed out of sight amid the waterside foliage. But as I was coming homeward up to the village street, I heard the voices again, and there, under the Seven Sisters on the green, the little company were standing together, singing apparently for their own solace and delight. It was a strange thing, here in unemotional England, and many of the village folk had been drawn wonderingly to their doors. Yet the singers didn't seem to remark this or regard their action as anything out of the common. For the song finished, they broke into several parties and sauntered on, talking quietly amongst themselves as if to make music was part of the daily conversation of their lives. All that afternoon, from the quiet of my garden, I heard the voices at intervals, and from different points about the village, near and far. Once I saw the party right on the top of Windle Hill, strolling about in twos and threes, looking like foraging crows on the heights. And after a while I saw them get together in a little circle, and then, right at the ear's tip, I would catch the higher notes of their singing, a strange, wild song, much like the song of the larks that must be contending with them up there against the blue sky. The last I saw of this mysterious company was at sunset from my perch over the chalk pit again. They had already embarked when I arrived, and had got their little ship well under way. The oars were dipping steadily to the same old catch song as that had brought them hither, and there was still a faint throbbing echo of white sand and grey sand upon the air after the sun had plunged and the pale half-moon was beginning to enter a timid silver protest against the lingering crimson in the sky. Nothing about rubbish, though, being deposited. That's funny, because I thought he said that they didn't do that. How is Mr. Suggett? Yes, Mr. Suggett is fine. I did speak to him on the phone yesterday or the day before, I think it was. Lee Lawson says, my parents told me that before the war there used to be a cottage near the river at Burpham where an old lady served teas. That's not the teas Tickner is writing about, though. Is it not? Maybe the inspiration, though. Keep Britain tidy, says Turbo. Does he mean nosegay as in a posy of flowers? Maybe he does. Bonnie says, as people smelt pretty bad centuries ago, a nosegay of herbs and flowers would have been worn on a thread around the neck. Yes, but was it still in 1910? Were they still doing that? Or was that not a 19th century thing and before? Lee Lawson says there is a chalk pit still in South Woods in Arundel Park by the river. That was popular too before the war for camping. Ah, I never knew that, says Tammy. A nosegay might also be pinned to a hat or a cloak. Oh yes, that might be more likely. I suppose it's just old-fashioned language, isn't it, that we hear. When I was 11, says Edward Moulding, with the lad next door, we would cycle to Burpham from Worthing to see his sister. Ah! What is that, about seven odd miles? Something like that? 7 or 8 miles, I should think. Probably nice little cycle ride. I once cycled from Worthing to Bury to do an interview at Bignor. So I cycled to Bignor. I didn't cycle to Bury, I cycled to Bignor. And on the way, I was cycling up the hill that goes at the side of Arundel Park on the road up to Whiteways. And I was cycling there with my microphone and all this stuff to go and interview this bloke at Bignor about Bignor Roman Palace. And some kids, this was about 2006, something like that, maybe 2005, actually, thinking about it. I've still got the recording somewhere. But anyway, I was cycling there with my stuff, and these kids in a car, I say kids, teenagers, one of them, an early adopter of throw a milkshake at you brigade. You know, when they were doing that during Brexit, I think these same people were practicing, knowing that Brexit must be coming some 15 years later. They lobbed this bloody milkshake at me. It hit me exploded. Mostly, it avoided me, but I had a little bit. And when I turned up, I had to apologise to the guy of smelling of strawberry milkshake. True. 1910, not many people had baths. No, you're probably right. We do learn a lot on this channel, says Turbo. I cycled on the Downs link from Guildford to Shoreham. Did you? I walked it with a friend. I didn't walk the whole thing. I walked it from Shoreham to Christ Hospital, which is about 20 miles. And then we got the train back. By golly, we were knackered, I tell you. That was a long time. I can't remember if we didn't film it. I don't think we even recorded it, actually, which was a shame. And Tammy says, makes sense. I always wondered if the preservatives we ingest nowadays make one smell bad. Well, they probably don't help. I don't think eating preservatives are any good for us in any shape or form. Right, we are on the next bit, but it's 1:45, which is a long bit, and it's Friday. I'm loath to start the next bit, even though it's just gone 1:45. We could do a little bit more. But seeing as we are ahead, I might leave it there. And it's Friday, and so we'll all forget where we're going. But let me show you some of the pictures that we've missed. You saw the picture of the old boy, didn't you? The old boy doing his thing. Anyway, you've got time to look at that video with Mr. Suggett that I linked up. We did pass some pictures, and I kept thinking I ought to show them to you. Oh, yes. That's the picture of the... Sorry, just getting my camera all lined up. That's the picture of the sheep dip, with the hurdles, the sheep wash. They don't seem as frantic there as the description that he gave. I thought the description was going to be very frantic. Is that another one? No, this is our... I forget what he was. Oh, the Bee Master. Let's have a look at the Bee Master. It's hard to believe that people really dressed like that, with the beards and things and a bowler hat. Even though it's scruffy and it needs an iron and a jolly good clean, there was a certain pride, wasn't there, in how people dressed in those days. I know it's scruffy, but it's so much... I can't help thinking it's just so much better than sweatshirts and hoodies, and I don't know. I know it's more comfortable and nicer for wearing, possibly sweatshirts and hoodies and all of that. But there was a certain pride, I think, that people had. I think we've lost a lot, really, sadly. There is another picture here. Oh, that was the Rinders. We did look at the Rinders. They were the guys who were chopping that tree. Do you remember? Where they stripped the bark for the tannin. For the tanners. Big old tree. Full of lice, says Bonnie. What was full of lice? The clothes. I love seeing old photos of the old shepherd's clothing. Yes, I mean, they're probably full of lice because of where they slept, but I'm not talking about the state of the clothing. I'm talking about just the fact that they're wearing, waistcoats and trousers and hats and shirts, instead of T-shirts and shorts. I don't know. We never saw this one. What does that say? Old friends. I don't know. Little kids on those beautiful horses. Look. I wonder where that was taken. And the kid down on the other side here, beneath my finger there in that smock. Children had goose fat rubbed onto their chests, wrapped up for the winter. Imagine the smell. Yeah, my mum used to. When I was a kid, my mum. I mean, you think, golly, I wasn't brought up in old times, but we used to have Vicks rubbed on us all round the chest, and we used to go under the stairs. Not that this is, it's just the way Mum kept it. And there was this great big jar of malt, and every day, or once a week, I can't remember, it may have been once a week, we'd go into the kitchen and have this big spoon of malt, and we'd have to eat this malt. And it was all right. I didn't mind it. It was a sort of sweety brewer's malt type thing. This is, what's this called? Homeward Bound. I think we did see this at the very beginning. Why can't I? There it is. Oh, this is funny, isn't it? There's the river. I wonder if that path, we could find that path down to the river. Are they South Downs sheep? No doubt there are more pictures to see, but we haven't come up to them. There's one. Oh, here's a picture of the ferryman's cottage. You want to see what the ferryman's cottage looked like? Look at that, those tall chimneys. Thatched roof. How splendid. How splendid. Is there another one? We may as well. We've just got a couple. And then I'll let you go. It's difficult to know where they are. They've been, oh, there's one. Interspersed they are. Oh. Oh yes. South Down Ewes. And that's them, the South Down Ewes. In hay or straw with the wattles. Good stuff. Anyway, there we go. So how are we doing? Yeah, well, we are now 2/3 through. So I don't know that we'll finish it next week, but we may do. We may make a good stab at that, finishing it by the end of the week. Would be good, wouldn't it? And then we'll think about, there's a couple of books I've got potentially on the horizon. So that's it. What else are people saying? Yep, that was the same. We had the same rub, but only when we had a cough. Yes, I think it was only when we had a cold or in the winter or something. Do you remember rosehip syrup? Yes, I did. I don't remember taking it, but I remember the bottle, and coal tar burning in your bedroom. I don't remember that. I used to get a big spoonful of that malty stuff too. I loved it. Yeah, no, it was a sort of treat, but I can't remember. It must have been once a week, because I think once a day would have been too much. And Ribena, Ribena was very expensive. I don't think we ever got to have that. Lee Lawson says it was a teaspoon of cod liver oil followed by malt in my day every morning. Blimey. To think that 4 out of 5 more years and the world is going to change. To think only 4 or 5 more years and the world was going to change. I don't know. What do you mean by that? That the world within 4 of... What do you mean, Mr. Paul? We still buy Wright's coal tar soap, says Martin Cannon. It looks so small against the large tree. Oh, what, the cottage. Bovril in hot water. Yes, I had a hot Marmite last night, actually, just as a change from tea. The photo's a wonderful addition. Thank you for the reading. It was much better today without the cricket game. Oh, yes, that was bloody cricket game. It's the dialogue. I like doing dialogue of the characters, but in order to, that's even more where you're trying to sort of get the intonation in, and just trying to decipher it was just too much. Scott's Emulsion. Gosh, don't remember that. 1904, first cars. Yeah. Oh, do you mean 4 or 5 years? 4 or 5 years the world was going to change. Oh, yes, Paul, I get what you mean. You mean the First World War came in? Yes. World War One. Yes. Sorry. I thought you meant in reference to us taking the malt, that 4 or 5 years after us having the malt, the world was going to change. Yeah. No, everyone's saying it's just me that's thick. Sorry, it's just me that's thick. Dean, been listening quietly at the back, says Linda Kane. Oh, well done, Linda Kane. Thank you for being quiet. I no doubt you were singing at the same time. What is Marmite? It's like Bovril. It's a yeast extract. It's a black yeast extract, like Vegemite, Bovril, that sort of thing. The world would change. Yes, it would. You can still buy Potter's malt extract now, says James Polton. Let's try some. And Marmite is a small, fluffy animal, says a Marmite. Yes, it's a tiny little, mites. Well, this is mother's mite. It covers women who are mothers. Mars mites, they are. Dad mites are something different, and dead mites are much more appreciative. Marmite is disgusting, says the lovely Julia. She hates it. But there we are. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to do the Vobes show at 8 o'clock UK time later on. You're very welcome to join me then. But I'm going to go and stoke the Essie and see if my chili con carne that I had in the freezer, which I took out earlier, has defrosted. For that is I'm having for dinner. Justine Jones says, haha, Marmite is a savoury yeast spread and is very good source of B vitamins and is lovely. I do like it. A Marmite is a cooking pot. It's good in cooking as well, Marmite. It's very good. Potter's established in 1812. With the 1812 overture, I imagine. Marmite is the devil's diarrhea, says Ben Reeve. You and Julia obviously are in the same side of the fence. The devil's diarrhea, my goodness. You're killing me. We're trying not to. Anyway, there we go. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for joining me. It's been fun. And Bonnie says, I've made chicken and lentil soup. Well, I'm coming over to have it then. I've just got some second-hand chili con carne. Apparently, there is now a Marmite cornetto. Oh, give me cornetto. Marmite cornetto, give it to me. Delicious ice cream, black from Italy. Spread it on your toast. Marmite cornetto, it's lovely. And on that note, I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.